Well, good evening. My name is Jay Williams. I have the privilege of serving as the president of the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. Thank you all for joining us on what is the culmination of a listening tour of each of the 29 towns that we serve that started last year, and we are now in our 17th stop. Windsor Locks and Suffield are our 24th towns that we are engaging. And it's been an invigorating experience. This is about a series of discussions we've been having with our communities. And the essence of it is to understand and to hear directly from our stakeholders about how we can be a more impactful partner, how we can be more valuable as a resource to the residents and stakeholders of the towns that we serve. And asking just a few simple questions that we hope that you would share with us that are very critical to us helping to inform and shape the work that we're engaged in. What do you love about your towns? What makes Suffield or Windsor Locks special communities? What makes them unique communities that have an appeal that you live here or do business here or have other investments here? What frustrates you? What concerns you? What are some of the things that you look out across the horizon and you've seen the change in the community, and it just really begins to give you either pause or excitement about the potential that exists? And then how can we, as a community foundation, really, again, seek to bring the resources that we have? We are known for the grants that we provide, but we also have the ability to convene thought leadership around issues. We have the ability to commission research. We have the ability to evaluate different approaches. So it's really a whole host of things that we want to make you aware of, but most importantly, really to understand from you directly how we can be more valuable and impactful. And we've been around for a long time, for 94 years. We've done a lot of work. We've got a lot of relationships, but we realize that the best way to understand how to better improve the organization is to hear directly from the communities that we serve. So we have been approaching this with humility. We've heard wonderful things that have inspired us. We've heard things that have brought us to the recognition that we have come short in some areas and we can do better. So it's been a humbling process, but we walk away from each and every one of these more informed, more connected. So before we get into the dialogue, just want to show you a very brief video that sets some of the context of who we are, what we're about, and then we'll get right into our discussion.
So, you want to leave a legacy?
Why not send me to college?
Help me be a better provider.
Or help support local programs.
At the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, through your generosity, we make both big and small dreams come true. This isn't just a donation, this is an investment. Through our careful financial stewardship, your money will last forever, helping numerous nonprofit organizations in the 29-town greater Hartford area, changing countless lives along the way. It's a tradition that goes back to 1925. The Hartford Foundation for Public Giving is one of the oldest and largest community foundations in the country. We help donors impact the issues they care about, such as education, health, the arts, economic and community development, early childhood, and more. This is your community, and it's our community too. More than 90 years of experience means we understand the big picture, how different issues connect, and what will be needed in the future. The Hartford Foundation is invested in the vibrancy of every town in Greater Hartford. We award grants, share knowledge and data, influence public policy, host events, and build partnerships. But most importantly, we help people like you make a difference. Whether you want to establish a scholarship, join a giving circle, or start your own donor-advised fund, we are here to help. We'll make sure you reach your philanthropic goals, whatever they may be. The gift you give today will make an impact now and for years to come. It's about making Greater Hartford a better place, and you can make a difference. We promise.
So, what will your legacy be?
The Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, together for good. As was mentioned in the video, we are the largest community foundation in the state of Connecticut. We are one of the oldest and largest in the entire country, serving 29 towns in the greater Hartford region. So while we are a regional community foundation, we are also your community foundation, the community foundation of Windsor Locks, the community foundation of Suffield. And as I said earlier, with the large area that we cover, with the amount of time that we have been in existence, we have established a lot of relationships, and there have been a lot of partners that we've had in our nonprofit community, a lot of stakeholders that we've had an opportunity to engage. But we recognize, and with credit to the board, recognizing that this region had evolved, our communities and towns had evolved, that we could not simply assume that we should do the same thing in the same way that we did it and expect different results. That we as an organization had and needed to evolve, and we're very much embracing that. And we'll touch on a couple of things that have really been a demonstrable manifestation of that, both in terms of our new strategic plan and in terms of a couple of the tools that we've introduced that are directly relevant to the towns here. But a part of that was a commitment to reintroduce ourselves to our communities through a listening tour. And a listening tour really meaning that we do the listening and you hopefully do the talking. So to that end, want to go back to those questions of, what do you love about your community? What is appealing about your community? What are some of your concerns or frustrations? And how might we, through the investments, the resources, the tools that we have, really serve as a more impactful and valuable partner? So this is a small group, and we want to be respectful of your time. We won't, keep you any longer than you have things to say or to contribute. But at the same time, if I stand up here and give a monologue or soliloquy, that doesn't work either. So we want this to be conversational and engaging, and to respond to either those questions or any observations you have as an organization. And I've said this at every one of our sessions that there are two ways to do this. There is the easy way where you can volunteer, and share something with us. Or there's the more difficult and awkward way that if you make eye contact with me, I will assume you have something to offer. And because this is a small room, there's really not a lot of places to hide. So if I see you sort of glance or cast your gaze this way, and we haven't got any conversation going, I'll just randomly start asking you to share. But again, thank you for the time. Thank you for coming out on this very rainy evening to spend some time with us and have this conversation, and know that we don't see this as a one-off. This is really about a continuing conversation that is going to help shape our work this year, next year, and for many years to come. And you will see demonstrable instances of that in what we do. So I'd like to open it up and hopefully get this started the easy way.
Can I start with a question?
By all means.
The question would be, how have your resources been spent on average over the last 5 years?
Sure.
Between education, healthcare, all the different
Sure.
types of programs.
So we probably grant on average between $35 and $37 million, $38 million a year over the past several years. And we have had a significant investment in education. So it's fair to say that probably, Judy's not here, Razi Bato, but in education, we've probably, between education, basic human needs, and arts and culture, that has been probably a significant portion of the grants that we've made. We also have been involved in community and economic development, perhaps to a lesser extent, but I would say education. And when I say education, I mean early childhood, our K through 12, and our scholarship program. That really has historically defined our educational initiatives. And then again, arts and culture and basic human needs. So those would be sort of the big buckets that we've invested in, and I will use that a little bit later on as a jumping off point to where we see ourselves going in this new strategic plan that are still reflective of many of those areas, but I think in a more data informed way. And I should add that that is through our discretionary dollars. There are donor advised funds where donors have set up their funds and they choose to direct their philanthropic giving. So in that regard, it spans the gamut from the environment to their alma mater, whether it's in this region or otherwise. We joke about this, but we embrace it. There was a donor advised fund that was set up for the benefit of ferrets. So if you have a philanthropic inclination, and it is an appropriate, by appropriate I mean defined within the IRS as a nonprofit entity, your imaginations can be supported through your philanthropic leanings, and we welcome that too. So thoughts about, again, your town. It doesn't have to be a direct response to, you all obviously have some either appeal or interest in the communities. You live here, you work here. There are a lot of other places you could choose to be, but either because maybe this is where your roots are, or you moved here for employment or for a loved one, don't know the origins here, but you're here. So about the community and what are things that we can do or that you hope or aspire that we might be able to do as an organization to help improve the quality of life. We've got thoughts and ideas. Bonnie?
So I'm not speaking as a foundation staff. I lived in Suffield for 29 years. It was also the place that I had my first job in high school. And the thing that I loved about Suffield in particular is its proximity to everything. So its proximity to the airport, its proximity to the highway to get to where I worked in Hartford, its proximity to Springfield and heading north, but still maintaining an amazing community and country charm. When you drive through Suffield, you don't feel like you're 5 minutes away from the highway or the airport, unless you are in the fly zone. But one of the things I wanted to tell everybody here is when you look at the handouts that the foundation left on your chair, you'll see one for Suffield and you'll see one for Windsor Locks. And the one from Suffield actually, to me, shows the power of what one donor can do in a town. Because many of the grants that you see on the Suffield page have come from one donor-advised fund from the Zach family that was specifically in place for the benefit of Suffield. So when you see the wide variety of organizations that were supported and activities, that was one of my first introductions to the foundation, was actually driving through town and seeing signs that would say, and the Zach Family Foundation at the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving helped us with X, whether it was a place for the ambulance or something at the library. So I do think that connection from the foundation to my town was made by literally not just the broad-based giving of the foundation in general, but by one family. So that's the power that one individual can have on a town.
Thank you. And that's a very salient point, because as you look at even the variety of things, from the Suffield Land Conservancy to the Suffield Little League to the Public Library Foundation to the Firemen's Association, the Kent Memorial Library, the Suffield Players. So it really, the areas that you are able to consider as a part of improving the quality of life are really only limited by your imagination and the ability to find a nonprofit partner that is either engaged in that activity or aspires to be engaged in that activity. So to that end, and in a relatively small community, it's possible to have an outsized impact. So that's, I think, one of the other things that we have. We have Hartford as our largest community with over 130,000. And then we have, communities that range from 5,000 and everywhere in between. So, we see ourselves as a resource equally to each of those. So, the size of the town isn't any indication of the potential of engagement with the foundation, and I think that's a very good example. Yes, sir.
I want to echo what Bonnie said. We haven't met yet. I work in Suffield. Actually, I'm new to there as well, and the people are definitely the strength and the character of the town. I had some ideas. I'm the new Parks and Recreation Director there, and I have mapping out a vision for that. And I had a couple of ideas bouncing around. That you have to contact the Hartford Foundation. The Zach family has been tremendous. So I did some research before I contacted them.
Okay.
And I saw a list similar to this, and I think it's great that the family has set that up. So really looking forward to learning more about the foundation.
Good.
And as we set up a vision for it, and hopefully we could match some of those things with some of the donor funds or just the foundation itself.
I we welcome that conversation. And, to the point, as you pointed out in your role as Park and Recreation Director, one of the issues that has consistently arisen is how the open space and recreational space provides quality of life. We were in, I believe it was in Enfield, and there was lots of discussion around the town and some of the residents who were seeking to improve areas for children to come together and play, children who are, I guess the term able-bodied, and children who have, physical challenges, not limitations, but physical challenges, and how in an area of the town it would be ripe for an opportunity for them to come together. So, yeah, we welcome those discussions and those ideas, and
I'll be in touch.
thank you. Look forward to it. Good.
But to that point, I don't know if other towns are the same way, but it has that character where you're driving through farmland, but you also have the professionals from Hartford that live there for the proximity of the highway. So it's a nice balancing act, and we're going to get there.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I'll throw it out quick too. And
Sure.
You made me think of it. One thing I do like about Suffield too is our newspaper.
Okay.
There's probably, I'm thinking there's 50 or 60 people who volunteer and they don't get paid, and to my knowledge, no one is paid at the Suffield Observer. It's like a 60-something page monthly that does a real good job.
Right.
Giving a lot of people in town a voice and giving a lot of information. But it really reflects what you're talking about there being a lot of good people in town. And you see it a lot. You see it in the Observer, you see it in the people who volunteer in the library, and who bring books down once a month to go into the library sale. So yeah, there's a good spirit in town of volunteers.
Okay, work out. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to follow up on that. I'm involved in a number of organizations and stuff, and one of the difficulties we have is perpetuating it, getting the next generation involved. And that would be something, because I know you had said that the Hartford Foundation is actively involved in trying to create group, discussions and things like that. And one of the things that I see, to your point, there's all these organizations in town, it's almost always the same people. And the problem is it wears people down. Right. And you get fatigue amongst, and you go to the meetings and it's always the same 125 people in town who were at all the meetings. And I guess the question is, and I'm sure you're seeing this throughout your listening tour probably, and I just wonder, is there something that the Hartford Foundation has thought about in terms of a way to stimulate, create a catalyst, help identify, recruit, younger volunteers?
So I'm smiling because without fail, that issue has come up almost verbatim at every one of the sessions that we had, even to the point where we committed, but then the staff, I made the commitment, then the staff was like, okay, now we got to back this up. So the brain trust behind it isn't me. I'm the mouth that said it, but the brain trust behind it. That we committed that this year we would examine how to convene a discussion or a symposium or some forum around that very issue to address, and you said it, with a group of folks who are faithful, who show up, who have families and lives and jobs and obligations, who still, find the time or create the time to do and dedicate themselves to the things that make their respective communities special. But they're human, and you get fatigued, and you get pulled in so many different directions, and it does wear thin. So, we are in the early stages of trying to figure out how to convene a discussion around that. Don't know exactly what it would look like, but it will involve all of our communities. They will all, have an opportunity to participate. Whether it involves examining what other communities that are similarly situated in other parts of the region or the country have done, perhaps bringing some thought leadership to have that discussion. But we don't want it to be just a discussion. We want some pragmatic application to come out of it. So, nowadays between the thought leadership and the technology, is there some platform that really allows for the assembly and the connection of volunteers, of all ages and demographic spectrum, people who love their community, who bring talent and a willingness to dedicate their time. So thank you for raising that. Know that you are not alone in any way, shape, or form. And it is something that we have on our priority agenda to figure out, how and when we can do that in a way that communities walk away with greater connectivity and with an actual approach that would help to engender additional volunteers. So thank you. So let me share with you one of the exciting announcements that we made just in the past few months at our annual gathering that we call Greater Together. It's a celebration of our donors and of our partners and of the work that they have done in this community. And that related to our community funds. So we announced in November, with the support of the board, and the staff is exceptionally excited about it, that in each of our 29 communities, we are going to create a community fund that will sit at the Hartford Foundation with an initial investment of $100,000. Half of which is going to be structured as an endowment, so it will exist in perpetuity and continue to generate income for the community. The other half of it is going to be available for immediate use, whether it's a large project or several small projects, or to use as leverage to attract other investments. And what is unique about this? This is going to be a fund that we will hold and manage as a part of our endowment, but the decision making of what projects or what organizations might receive support is going to be completely and totally within the hands of the community, members of the community. And when I say this is a town fund, it is not a fund that is under the jurisdiction of the municipality, but this is a fund in the name of Suffield and in the name of Windsor Locks that our staff is going to work with members of the community to assemble what I'm calling a community advisory board. It will be made up of stakeholders of the community that reflect the community, that will work with our staff. We'll do some training and capacity building and some guidance and providing some consultation, but that really will turn the imagination, the creativity, the talent in each of those communities loose to do grant making yourself, putting participatory grant making in the hands of our residents and the communities. Because again, as I said, the same reason we are having this conversation about your communities, because you know best, you know better than we do, is the same philosophy around some of the issues that are present and important to a community. You know best, better than we do. So we still maintain the process where the organizations can come and we'll put them through our grant process, and are happy to do that, and that still remains. But we say that putting the resources, we believe that putting the resources in the hands of the communities, so it cuts down the bureaucracy, you're directly involved, and also, we'll see the challenge that we have, that there are always more, as you know, there are always more demands and more needs and desires than our resources. But we're very excited about that and are going to be engaging the communities over the next several weeks and months about setting those funds up and getting them going. And I can tell you that even out of the gate, there was a donor, as the Zach family has been so generous here, there was a donor that just within the past week made a matching $100,000 contribution to one of our towns, happened to be West Hartford. The donor's anonymous, but the town, in fact, the donor said he hopes, he or she hopes, that that would serve as a catalyst. In fact, encourage us to share that news and hope that that would serve as a catalyst for individuals who have loved their or are residents of their communities to really, jump into this, head first. So it's an exciting tool that we hope that you will find valuable in terms of addressing some of the issues that might arise tonight or issues that arise in the future, both in terms of inspiring and expanding philanthropy, putting the philanthropy into the hands, or the decision making into the hands of the residents and the stakeholders, both in terms of leveraging other dollars, whether they're private dollars, public dollars, philanthropic dollars, and also just seeing that grow. So that's an exciting tool that we're eager to kick off. And so collectively, it's a $2.9 million commitment. And the board was very particular to remind me as we announced this that they see this as just an initial foray into participatory grant making. So it just provides that mechanism for us to further engage with our communities in a way that is unique to each of them. Like I said, we're a regional foundation, and in many instances we play a role in trying to raise issues of regional importance. And beyond that, We collaborate with other community foundations across the state to raise issues of statewide importance, and we're excited about that. But while it's still a relatively small state and we have an important regional function, the individual attention and the individual issues and concerns and aspirations of each of our 29 communities are as important as anything else that we do. So we're excited about the community funds and additional thoughts around that. And this is it's hard enough. You won't be coming to us for those decisions. That's a process that will continue, but these will be decisions that you'll make in your own respective communities. So we hope you find that as an exciting and valuable tool. Other thoughts? Yes.
How will the community advisory board? How will the community advisory boards be established and the community advisory board?
Right.
Like how?
So
are they going to come together?
that we're working on it. We are going to go and communicate with each community, make an announcement, and ask for the community to submit. And I'm sort of doing this on the fly, Nancy, so jump in.
I'm looking at Doug, who's on the committee.
Oh, okay, Doug. Oh, Doug.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
What you just said, I'll be happy
But
to.
you're doing fine.
Hi, my name is Doug Shipp, and I work in a nonprofit support program, but I'm part of the team that Jay mentioned that's helping to implement this vision of the community fund. So we will be, as Jay said, reaching out to communities, perhaps in some larger group gatherings initially, with the community leaders to find out who would be the citizens that would be appropriate people to be on the advisory committees for their town. So it will be a process. It will take a few months to get the advisory committees set up. Our goal is to do it as quickly as possible based on the speed that the town can support in providing volunteers and forming a representative group that reflects the diversity of the towns that they're supporting. So more to follow. We have a website, and I think, Nancy, we have info on the desk out there with the website address. If you're interested in staying involved or staying informed, you can go to the website, you can put your information in there. We have a database, and we'll be reaching back out to those people specifically that put their names in with updates. And when we do have convenings, we'll be inviting people to attend as well. So thanks for the question.
And while we are certainly going to engage the leaders, we want to be very clear that we want this to truly reflect the makeup of the communities. There are individuals who are, if not elected, very politically active and very civically active and socially active. And there are individuals who may not appear on that radar screen, but are no less committed or involved. They're just going about and seeing what needs to be done. How can I volunteer over here? So, I think, and we think it's important that that these community advisory boards really reflect that entire spectrum. So we will acknowledge and respect the nominations that we get from the traditional established leaders, but I've been telling people to self-nominate, to make yourself aware of it, express your own interests, because I think that the greater representation that we get from all segments and levels of the community, whether it's somebody who is well known as a face and a name and a voice, or someone who just quietly goes about doing their work, whether they happen to be 84 years old or a 17-year-old who is just, I think that is so important to make sure that it's not seen as a clique. It's not, there's going to be enough of the challenges with any group, particularly around how to invest in your own town, but I appreciate you.
Well, I'm thinking of Chris's comment of the same 100 and some people who keep showing up, and it's like if that's the group that becomes the advisory board, then it becomes an echo chamber.
Absolutely right, and that's why. And that group is no disparagement to that group. I know none of us, but we appreciate what they do. So there may be one or two of those folks on there, but there should be other folks who are like, just been quietly going about dedicating themselves to their town.
It could act actually as a catalyst for getting some of these new younger members.
Absolutely. So we're going to need all of your help, to help us identify and in fact, after we announced it, there were a couple of young ladies who came up and there were a lot of people, but they were taking selfies by their town banner. We had town banners, which we thought was hilarious. And as they were describing their excitement of what they did in their communities, I told them, I said, I hope you all, as we roll this out, we'll put your names in a hat, we'll self-nominate so we can have a very diverse pool of people from all the towns. And, there'll be some people who are disappointed and maybe don't make, but they're going to be rotating terms. So we'll make sure that it is as open as possible. Thank you. So another exciting announcement that we made has to do with our new strategic plan. As I talked about a few months ago, our investments has been in education, community development, arts and culture, basic human needs. But as we started taking a look at the body of work and the history of work that we have done, there were lots of reasons to be proud, but there were also some things that stood out to us as to why this change that we made would be reflective of what we're hearing from our donors and what we're hearing from our board. And that has to do with how we really measure the impact of our work. People who give us resources expect for us to be a good steward managing those resources and growing them. And I think we do that proudly, and notwithstanding the challenges of the market, we've done that and continue to do that. They also expect us to be able to have an impact and demonstrate that impact. And I think we've done that too. So, there's reasons to be proud, but we also recognize that when you look at the breadth and the scope of the challenges and the opportunities in the community, and you look at the resources that we, not in a vacuum, but along with our partners, direct toward those, it really caused us to realize that we wanted to be able to even, in a more pronounced and a more articulate way, demonstrate the impact that we're having. But impact that was really going to be geared toward those in the greatest need within our community, those individuals who are being affected by persistent disparities that have existed in this country for years, in this state, but particularly in this region. So we redoubled our efforts and made a significant investment in building research and evaluation capacity within the foundation, and worked with a lot of organizations that were assembling data that would really help us read into some of the challenges in a slightly different way. And as a result of that, working with our board, engaging stakeholders across our 29 community region, we established a framework for this strategic plan that we're rolling out this year. And the broad priority areas, aren't earth-shattering. We continue to look at education, but less in the silo as we've had before, and more across the continuum from early childhood through a career path. We're looking at community safety, which has emerged as an important part of the foundation's work, and also community and economic development. While those are still three broad areas, what we're looking to do is to allow the data to lead us to where within those priority areas there are cohorts or segments of the community that have been, again, suffering and not enjoying the trajectory of the quality of life because of disparities, persistent, deep disparities, and particularly disparities that have been exacerbated by the issues of race, the issues of place, and the issues of income. It is not a secret, and it is unfortunate that in many instances in our community, the trajectory or the quality of life or the future aspirations of young people or families can be predicated on their zip code. If very few other things in zip code, they could look, act, and have the same intellectual or artistic potential as one of their citizens in a neighboring community, but because of the zip code in which they live, their trajectory often finds themselves not being able to fulfill their potential. The same thing holds true for race and ethnicity. If you set aside or the factors or lay the factors that make them very similar in any other way or every other way, one's race and ethnicity has that same predicating factor. And we also found that in households who are of a certain income stratification, working hard, doing quote unquote whatever the right things are. People say, they haven't worked hard enough, they haven't done the right things. Setting aside all those things that the income stratification that a family starts in often then is a predictor of how well they or their children would do. And as we thought about our mission of helping to bring vibrancy and quality of life in all the communities that we serve, that mission remains unchanged. But we can't truly fulfill that mission if we ignore these disparities, if we ignore the fact that there are barriers and thresholds and obstacles that no matter how hard or how smart some of our fellow citizens in our communities work, that they would still find themselves not able to live up to the potential or to enjoy some of the things that so many of their other citizens enjoyed and fellow citizens. We know we can't do this in a vacuum. We know we can't do this alone. But looking at the data, reorienting ourselves as a foundation, as a catalyst to that, we are excited about the fact that we are going to spend these next 3 years really zeroing in on those disparities, really zeroing in on where we think that over these next 3 years we can make a difference. We can have a demonstrable, measurable impact, knowing that they won't be solved in 3 years. I mean, these are long-term systemic challenges that have existed for a long time and will unfortunately probably exist for many years to come. But we believe that if through partnerships and through our tools of our grant making, our research and evaluation, our convening, and our public policy and some other things, that we can work to be able to demonstrate a more measurable impact, which is consistent with what we're hearing from our donors, which is consistent with what we're hearing from our board, and consistent with what we're hearing from our stakeholders. And in doing that, it doesn't leave any of our communities out. They're all different. They have different challenges and opportunities, but when you look through the lens of race, place, and income, each and every one of our communities have challenges that fall within that lens. So we're excited about that, and at the same time, understanding that we still have a role as a responsive grant maker for issues that arise that are unpredictable. We have historically played a significant role in that, and we'll continue to do that, knowing that our role in basic human needs remains of the utmost importance, so making sure that our fellow citizens have those things that are just about the dignity and quality of life that we all need to not only survive, but to ultimately move from survival to thriving. So it's a shift for the foundation. It is new, so it is really, pulling the curtain back behind some of the inner workings has caused us to really break down. We talk about breaking down silos, and we've been talking about that, but now we are really doing it in a sense of really reorienting how some of our staff work together, some of the terminology that we use, some of the systems and tools that we have. So it is new, it is a work in process, but we're excited because we think that as we look over the course of each year, the strategic plan, that we will be able to share with the community where we think we've made a difference or where we have made a difference, and sometimes maybe bring that to scale, share that with other communities. And it's something that as we look across our peer community foundations across the country, that they have, some of them are ahead of us, some of them are with us, and some of them are following behind in their footsteps. But this is a broad-based notion. So more to come. We look forward to your input and your thoughts about how that will roll out in your particular community. One of those new tools that I mentioned, referred to, is we also last year announced, or in the summer, announced the creation of a new subsidiary of the Hartford Foundation called HFPG Impact Greater Hartford. The idea there is to bring additional resources above and beyond our grant making that will sometimes work alongside that grant making to catalytic, transformative economic or community development projects, to bring capital to our communities that is more risk tolerant than traditional capital that we might see from the banks or from some of the other lenders or investors, to bring capital that is about the measure of inclusivity. How can we co-invest in projects that are about inclusive community benefit, that if was looked at by a traditional financer may not have the financial return, or may have a higher risk profile, or a financer that may not see the community benefit the way we see or value community benefit. So that's a new area of the foundation, and we have been reaching out, and you'll see a more pronounced campaign to our communities to really come to us with your ideas. We have been talking to communities about affordable housing projects. In fact, just a few hours ago before I came here was exchanging some emails with some stakeholders about talking about an affordable housing project in some of our communities. We were talking about some job creating initiatives. There were some developers who are working on an economic development project in one of the communities that will provide job opportunities for a wide array of citizens who typically have trouble entering into the job market. So that's an exciting project. So please, we have typically not been thought about in that regard. Our grant making is what we're known for. So we're excited that we now have another arm that isn't going to in any way, shape, or form take away from that grant making, but bring dollars to our community over and above, and oftentimes alongside that. So stay tuned for that, and think of your communities as, again, the places where these dollars are going to be directed in ways that really complement what we've been doing on our grant making. Yes?
How much new money are you able to generate into your foundation? I didn't grow up in Connecticut. I moved from New York City about 27 years ago.
Okay.
And when I moved up to Suffield, I mean, you had people who worked for Hamilton, Pratt, and many of those jobs have gone away.
Right.
So the biggest news was Amazon coming, and their buildings the size of 20 football fields. At peak, they have 2,300 people. That's not a lot. It's mainly robotics.
Right.
And those jobs, if you're in those 60 managers that are salaried, maybe it's okay, but the rest of the jobs are $15.
Right.
I mean, those kind of jobs don't sustain the incomes where people can say, I'll donate to the United Fund,
Right.
and I don't think their executives are like the big insurance honchos that can say, everybody, you must donate, or
Right.
I have a $500,000 bonus,
Right.
so I can cough up some bucks. So
Right.
where do
Sure.
you see it, the future source of money
That's a
coming
great
from?
question. So let me answer the first part of your question. We have averaged, for the past 10 years, we've averaged about $12 million a year in new contributions to the Hartford Foundation. Last year we were at 13 million. The year before that we were at 16 million because of the changes in tax policy, but it's averaged about 12 million. Historically, and when I say historically, the past 20 plus years, it has come from, we have benefited tremendously from individuals who had significant wealth, who left us in their estate plans, who bequeathed to us significant sums of money, sometimes on a few occasions $40, $50 million, sometimes $5 or $10 million, and that is historically where we have seen the biggest part of our new revenue come in. But that has shifted, and you're right, as the landscape has changed and the economy has changed, we have started to see, and so often when those funds came in, obviously it was a result of someone dying and leaving us in their estate. And we didn't have to do a lot to, the estate planning attorneys or the financial managers would say, as you make your plans, call the Hartford Foundation. So that was just kind of a given. So the landscape has changed in terms of the economy. The landscape has changed also in terms of there are more players out there who are doing this type of work. So we have made a concerted effort, and she's not here, but Deborah Rothstein, who is our Vice President of Development, she and her team have really understood that trend, and we have sought to focus and expand and inspire philanthropy to a much wider array of individuals. Individuals who don't have a $500,000, who don't have a $250,000, who may say, I need my philanthropy to start at $25,000 or $10,000. Or individuals who say, I need my philanthropy to start in one of your giving circles, which is $365 a year in one of the giving circles. But also understanding some people's philanthropy, perhaps that's not even where they start. So we've really sought to open up philanthropy and make it much more accessible and much more inclusive, to make it much more relatable to individuals whose grandparents maybe have done that, and whose parents were exposing them to it, but whose kids nowadays don't see philanthropy in the same way that their grandparents might have seen it. So, that's exciting in terms of really reaching out. And over the past couple of years, we've actually seen a growth in individual living donors. I don't want to sound, morbid, but, the people who are living and giving to us while they're living, that has increased. And that's exciting for us because it says that, as the environment has changed, that we are making sure that we're aware of that and are also introducing new vehicles for them to do their philanthropy, new funds. We have just had a discussion about adjusting the minimum amount that is required to both start a fund and the minimum amount that's required to give a contribution through the foundation. So, some people, $500 is a decent sum of money, and that's where our minimum was. And we're looking at, how do we maybe cut that in half? So someone who has $1,000 and wants to divide that up, 4 or 5 ways can do that, and we can be a mechanism to do that. So, Nancy and her team have done a phenomenal job in terms of marketing communications and making sure that the messaging about philanthropy, isn't about, the older, wealthy, well-established person who was thinking about their legacy and trying to figure out how to divide their estate. There was a campaign, and Nancy, you talk about this, it was I'm a Philanthropist, and it showed just a variety. If you just share a few minutes about that.
About a year or so ago, where we really wanted to help folks, or remind them what philanthropy really means, which in its broadest definition is love of humankind. And we also wanted to show that philanthropy has many different looks. So we had a wide variety of people who were part of our foundation, donors who were part of our foundation in many, many different ways, either a giving circle or a large donor, or started a donor advised fund. And they all very graciously came in and allowed themselves to be made up beautifully and photographed, and we used them as part of their campaign. And it really helped sort of shift the perspective.
I have been thinking about, on the micro scale, like the Kiva type models and things like that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
With regards to the strategic plan, how do you differentiate between community safety and community economic development? And I'll say a little bit more that from my experience and perception, when you have community economic development, when you have a community that is well in its process of being economically developed, you subsequently have safety.
Right. So my staff will love you because we see them as, and has demonstrated them as interconnected. Okay. And they'll probably chastise me because I didn't make that point. That while these are three areas that are the priority focus areas, we absolutely see them as interconnected. And that is even reflected to the extent of how we are reorienting our staff. Again, previously we had staff that were deeply devoted and dedicated around the issue of education and around the issue of early childhood and K through 12 education, early childhood, around the issue of workforce development, around these silos, these special initiatives. And that worked for a time. But in recognizing this change of these three priorities absolutely being interconnected, we have said to our teams, the folks that you've worked with over the past several years on these issues, you may find yourself working with someone else in the foundation on this particular issue, because you're right. A community that is thriving economically, that there are more opportunities, people are going to be less inclined to have to resort to or be engaged by things that are a detriment to community safety. And when you have people who are educated along that continuum, whether it's ultimately because you have a cohort of individuals who are seeking advanced degrees, or individuals who say, I've got my high school diploma, but I know I need a skill set that allows me to go directly into a productive career. That is also something. So we very much have demonstrated and are orienting ourselves so they are interconnected. So thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, thank you. So we want to be respectful of your time. It is about 20 minutes till 7. We had scheduled this till 7, but at the same time, with a small group and intimate conversation, what you have shared with us, continues to be invaluable, because while this is the first year of the new strategic plan, we are spending the first 4 to 6 months of this year really refining and tweaking some of the tactics that we are going to undertake to ultimately achieve those outcomes. And the refinement of those tactics, our staff is playing a critical role, but also the conversations that we continue to have and wind up with our communities really help to shape that. So again, I am open we are open to any additional comments or observations or suggestions, should you want to share them tonight. If not, like I said, this is not a one-off conversation where we can check the box and say, okay, we've engaged our stakeholders in Windsor Locks and Suffield. We have been around for 94 years. We'll be around for the next 94 years. I won't be. Maybe I'll be around with the advancement in medical technology, but I won't be the president of the Hartford Foundation. But that's the point, is that as we've only evolved because we have been continually connected to the community and understanding that our role in the community, in order to remain relevant and impactful, requires us to, with a very humble approach, make sure that we continue to have our fingers on the pulse of our communities, the partners that we do. We don't do the work. Some of the work we're going to start taking on directly ourselves, But this work is done because of the stakeholders and the partners in the nonprofit communities, the towns and the residents and the volunteers who really give of their time, their talent, and their treasure. So it's going to be a busy year. Stay tuned for the discussion or forum around the volunteerism. We will make that very well announced. Stay tuned for the details around your respective community funds, and hopefully if you have some interest, you will offer yourself up. Stay tuned for more discussion, but that's where we really need to hear from you. Thoughts and ideas around how our new impact investment arm could bring resources to your community in ways that are creative and flexible, in ways that are catalytic and transformative, that really are about including segments of the community that historically have not been able to reap the benefits to the extent that you all aspire them to do. So those are all things that, while relatively new, we are gearing up, in a very significant basis. So, yes, sir.
How do you see the impact of the state budget changing your role? And what I mean by that is, I'm on the Board of Finance in Suffield, and every year it's a fight. And the school education, keeps getting pushed down. Right. And certain unfunded mandates keep pushing up our costs. And the two are, what it's doing is it's squeezing out a lot of important programs.
Yep.
And my concern is that as we lose those programs, we lose a lot of the benefits of a good school system.
Right.
And I'm sure you're seeing it across the whole footprint as we go through this fiscal crisis. I just wonder, do you see your role in the programming with education changing and somehow, I don't know how, helping the school regions, be able to provide some of the traditional programs that they can't provide anymore?
So let me talk to it briefly. On our role as we see it. I'm going to ask Alyssa to comment on it. We are concerned about the state fiscal crisis and its impact on nonprofits writ large, which include, our educational partners. In fact, we have collaborated and convened with a half dozen other community foundations and have reached out to now Governor Lamont, offering ourselves as a thought leader, as a partner, as a resource, but also making it very clear that we are not, cannot, and won't supplant the obligations that the state and the local government entities have. I mean, it's just that is not the role that we have, nor would our resources allow for that. But at the same time, we understand there's some creativity and necessity for us to look introspectively. Alyssa, if you just kind of...
Sure. Alyssa Gordon, Vice President at the Foundation. Sorry. To add to what Jay already said, I think we really have seen our role, particularly using public policy as another tool that we have in our toolbox, as that research and evaluation and public policy work really goes hand in hand, because we see the more that we can understand the impact of the program that we're funding, and the work of the nonprofit and the contributions it is having or maybe not having on some of the critical issues in our region and communities, the more we can bring that information to policymakers and be able to say, look, we really sit in a unique position, unlike nonprofits even, or unlike others who may come asking for money. We come and we're able to say to policymakers, we sit in a similar place. We have a limited amount of dollars, and we have to be able to allocate those dollars most impactfully. And here's what we've learned. We've made investments here. Here's what we've seen. We've seen this program is critical and has a trickle impact on this other program. So if you cut here, it's not just cutting here. It has this impact, and it also has an impact over here on another program that maybe you've not cut. That's how we really see our public policy, one of the many ways that we see public policy, a role for us to be able to bring that information as a neutral party and as similarly situated in being able to say, we're choosing to put our limited dollars here, leverage that investment and continue that investment because it works.
Thank you. So there were two other staff members that joined. Well, Judy joined us, McBride. I didn't get to point her out, and I think I failed to point out Ryan O'Halloran from the foundation, who, again, I have said and will continue to say that the endowment, the financial resources that we have is our most valuable tool that really allows us to do a number of the things that we do. But our most valuable resource are our people, the staff, the knowledge, the passion, the talent that they bring, the creativity they bring, and they are really the connection that we have to our nonprofit partners. And those nonprofit partners are an essential connection that we have to our community. But as our board chair does constantly remind us that the relationship through our nonprofit partners, while relevant, while important, while critical, is not a substitute for the relationship that we have directly with the communities. And that was really part of the inspiration behind this series of listening sessions, so that communities, we could ensure or hope to reaffirm to them that the process by which you get to the foundation might vary. It may come through our NSP capacity building for nonprofits. It may come through our grant application process. It may come through attending a convening. But there is always a direct path to us through a phone call, through an email, through a conversation down at our offices. But what excites me is more a conversation directly in your respective communities. So the fact that you allowed us to come and share an evening with you about this is something we don't take for granted. Yes.
I'm Debbie Reid. I'm here at the New England Air Museum. I've been here for 30 years, but I also live in town. So in your little statistics there, I live and work in the same town. So I'm grateful for that. I know
That's a small circle of people who do both.
Yeah, that is. Representing the New England Air Museum, and if you take a look at the paper that was handed out, I mean, you have provided us with over $1 million through the years. I've been here 30 years, and I've been here through most of those grants. The Hartford Foundation has been above and beyond in any way and capacity. And this is the second one of these listening meetings I've been to, and I think it's great for the foundation to go into the community and let them know it's just not helping us, the nonprofits. It's helping everybody, and I appreciate what you've done for the museum and what hopefully you're able to do for all these communities. So thank you.
Appreciate it. And just for the record, that was not a condition upon the $1 million that she got. It was, but really, thank you all for your time. Continue to reach out to us. Any number of the staff members, on our website, and we are constantly evolving in ways to engage the community. It's wonderful to do this in person, but obviously limited time and logistics. So through our social media tools, which continue to evolve through, we just had a conversation a couple of days ago about podcasts that will really give us an opportunity to continue to tell the story of the work that we do in the community. So we want to reach out in a variety of ways for. And I go the gamut from wanting the newspaper to touch and feel, to be able to still engage in that way, to all the other tools that we want to avail ourselves to really stay connected and grounded in two-way communication. So if there are no other...
I thought it was pretty cool that Instagram, you were popping up on my Instagram for this.
For this, thank you to our marketing communication folks. I think I'm technologically inclined, but I'm not on Facebook, but my 72-year-old mother is. So I'm sort of in this between space. But so thank you, guys, for making that happen. So have a good evening. Please, there's more refreshments that we hope that you would take with you, and we really look forward to an ongoing conversation. Thank you for coming out.